I'm going to read just a short piece, and then a little bit of my reflection on it, but a short piece from Kathleen Norris on the incarnation from her book, Amazing Grace, a Vocabulary of Faith. And then after that, we can choose a few hymns that we want to sing, a few carols, and we'll try to stump Marilyn, and it's always fun. So let me just read a little bit of the back cover of this book so you know a little bit of who Kathleen Norris is and what she's trying to do in this book. It says, struggling with her return to the Christian church after many years away, Kathleen Norris found it was the language of Christianity that most distanced her from her faith. Words like judgment, faith, dogma, salvation, sinner, even Christ formed what she called her scary vocabulary, and she had to work to make these words her own before they could convey blessing to her. And the last sentence I find helpful. It says, she offers believers and doubters alike an illuminating perspective on how we can embrace ancient traditions and find faith in the contemporary world. So here's what she says about incarnation. Here's what she says about herself, too. Yeah. For me, she writes, the incarnation is the place, if you will, where hope contends with fear. Not an antique doctrine at all, but reality, as ordinary as my everyday struggles with fears, great and small, as exalted as the hope that allows me some measure of peace when I soldier on in the daily round. I like that, where hope contends with fear. I also tend to think of the incarnation in terms of language as a wonderful tension between the Word of God and human words, which is evident in the language describing the Annunciation. When the angel Gabriel first addresses Mary, it is an exalted, even imperial language. Hail, thou that art highly favored, the Lord is with thee. She says, I use the King James Version because the New Revised Standard Version is flat by comparison and sounds too much like Star Wars talk. Greetings, favored one, the Lord is with you. Gabriel addresses his majestic words in an unlikely setting to an unlikely person, someone poor and powerless, extremely vulnerable in her place and time, a young peasant woman about to find herself pregnant before her wedding. But if the angel's words express the hopes of generations of Israel, Mary's response is silence. The angel spells out the wonders that are about to ensue, again in exalted terms. Mary's son will be a king whose kingdom has no end. How can this be? Mary exclaims finally, and the angel says, the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Therefore, the child will be called Son of God. Mary says very little, and she says it simply, here I am, and let it be. The angel's therefore seems alarmingly significant, the seed of what Christian theologians have for well over 1,000 years termed the scandal of the incarnation. It also resonates with my own life, she says. When a place or a time seems touched by God, it is an overshadowing, a sudden eclipsing of my priorities and plans. But even in terrible circumstances and calamities and matters of life and death, if I sense that I am in the shadow of God, I find light, so much light that my vision improves dramatically. I know that holiness is near. And it is not robed in majesty. It does not assert itself with the raw power of empire, not even the little empire of the self in which I all too often reside, but it waits in puzzlement. It hesitates. Coming from Galilee, as it were, from a place of little hope, it reveals the ordinary circumstances of my life to be full of mystery and gospel, which means good news. So I find this helpful from Norris, especially that line, when a place or a time seems touched by God, it is an overshadowing. To me, she's simply encouraging us to look for incarnation, to look for God's movement in our day-to-day lives. And I'll leave it at that. Are there